Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, back in the hotel room with my bloody Alfred Hitchcock shadow. I apologise for the lighting, it's the best I could do. I've just done a day at work on location and, it's the end of the day, there's no light coming from the window. But hopefully for this review, the light will come from a wonderful pairing of Doctor and companions. We're in part 2 of Tom Baker's 14th season as the 4th Doctor for Big Finish. A couple of months back we had part 1 of series 14 with the Hellwood Inheritance, a box set that I wasn't particularly enamoured with, but I kind of gave the series the benefit of the doubt because honestly the first box set in the Tom Baker seasons that I've listened to in Big Finish as I've been covering and reviewing Big Finish over the past few years, the first box set typically has been the weakest. And I will say now that part 2 of series 14, The Ruins of K. Roula, it is an improvement over the Hellwood Inheritance, but it still doesn't really meet the highs that we know that the 4th Doctor range from Big Finish can reach. So for The Ruins of K. Roula, we have a trilogy of stories. We have The Remains of K. Roula by Fillmore Rhine, then we have a follow-up story, The Ruins of K. Roula, also by Fillmore Rhine, and then the third story is The Cry of the Banshee by Tim Foley. And Cry of the Banshee is a pretty highly anticipated release from Big Finish's 4th Doctor range, because this is the first time that Tom Baker's 4th Doctor, to my knowledge at least, this is the first time that the 4th Doctor has met Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, here played by John Coleshaw. It's also the first time that the Brigadier will have met K9 and also will have met Leela, played by John Leeson and Louise Jameson respectively. So this is quite an anticipated release. This is not a companion dynamic that we actually see much in expanded media. But before we get to that, let's talk about the titular Ruins of K. Roula. It's a 2-part or a 4-part story, because all of these 3 stories, they are 2 episodes apiece. The first story taking place in what counts as, I guess, the present day for K. Roula, and then the second story going hundreds of years back. Now this is something that Doctor Who has done a couple of times before. We've seen it on screen in series 9 with Under the Lake and Before the Flood with the 12th Doctor, but it's also something that's happened for Big Finish before, specifically Big Finish with the 4th Doctor and Leela back in 2015, with the 2-parter, The Fate of Krelos and Return to Telos. However, just because Big Finish did something 10 years ago with the same Doctor and companion doesn't mean they can't play with the format again. But I will say I think that Fate of Krelos and Return to Telos was the better and more inventive 2-parter. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So the Doctor, Leela and K9 land on K. Roula, some sort of time anomaly through the TARDIS of course, and they find themselves in these caves. And in these caves they stumble across some K. Roulans. You have Chief-Elect Toldra, played by Andrew James Spooner, and also Commander Roll, played by Robin Addison. K. Roula has become a militarized society after an apocalyptic event took place several centuries ago. And the conceit of this story is that K. Roula is essentially getting time refugees, where K. Roulans from the past, while the apocalypse was happening, are shooting themselves forward in time to when the apocalypse is over in order to find a new life for themselves. And these people the K. Roulans call the Rems, or the Remains. And the Rems also call the K. Roulans of the future / present, they call them Ops because they're oppressors, because they are taking the Rems and they're forcing them into servitude, they're locking them up in cages, and it's up to the 4th Doctor to try and broker some sort of peace between these 2 sides. But while this is happening, in the caves, Leela and K9 and one of the Rems called Pash, they've been separated from the group and they're making their way through the tunnels, but there's some sort of sinister creature in the tunnels with them.
I am a good tracker, but underground, without landmarks. This is hard.
Hopeless, you mean?
You are welcome to sit down and give up again.
Mistress,
Not now, K9. We just have to keep moving.
We've no idea which tunnels to take.
mistress,
Not now, K9. The important thing is to keep going. At least we are moving forward.
Wait a moment, No. This is where we started.
But it cannot be.
It is! Look! Over there! The cave-in!
mistress,
Yes, what is it, K9?
we have been retraversing our route for the last 409 meters.
What?
The flow of water indicated as much.
Wait, you were saying you knew we were going in a circle?
Affirmative.
And you did not say anything?
You stated it was just important to keep going.
Not the wrong way.
Hold on. This thing said something about the water?
Affirmative.
I think The Remains of K. Rool started strongly. I do really like the idea of these time refugees, and it's basically how would your descendants treat you centuries from now if you were approaching them as a refugee. And I think that's a really great sci-fi concept, especially in our current political climate of, stop the boats or whatever bloody rhetoric is happening in the UK this week. Even though this box set was recorded in 2019 and 2020, it still feels prescient, it still kind of feels on the ball. But for me, the most interesting part of The Remains of K. Rool is the stuff with Leela and K9 and Pash in the caves, where it's more like Doctor Who meets The Descent. And because this story structure has the Doctor trying to broker a peace between the Rems and the Ops, all the while Leela and K9 are fighting for their lives in the caves, it kind of means that we get half measures of both subplots. For me, I would have been happy with either of these ideas becoming fully fledged stories, but here, I don't know, I kind of feel like a lot was missing in terms of substance and in terms of actually developing the atmosphere. It's kind of hard to get absorbed in the ambience and the atmosphere of the caves when all of a sudden we're now going to go to the surface and it's the Fourth Doctor being flippant with his pocket contents. I think the performances are really strong across the board, and this is the first time that we've had K9 in a Fourth Doctor Adventures box set for several years now, and how K9 struggles to traverse any of the terrain over the course of this box set was a very funny recurring joke, but it feels like Phil Moraine had way too many good ideas and just decided to cram them all in this particular story. I will say though, there's a really great performance detail that I liked with the K. Roolans / the Ops, and that's how they performed as if they were very, very nervous and on-edge soldiers. Like the typical bog standard soldier performance is like stern, infallible, at least vocally, like they come across very confident. But here I got the sense that the K. Roolans were really nervous and on edge. They didn't quite know how to conduct themselves as soldiers because they haven't really had much in the way of proper conflict before in this post-apocalyptic future. They're surviving, but they're not actively in combat. They've not really had their resolves tested in a military capacity, and I really felt that inexperience coming from the performances. I don't know if that was deliberate or not, or if it was an actor choice or a director choice, but either way, it added a lot of great texture to the performances, which I really appreciated. Bloody hell, the work never stops. I just got a message from work that I have to respond to. Now, if you've not listened to this box set, you're probably thinking, Mr. TARDIS, of course there's time to expand on these elements of the story because there's another part to this one. There's The Ruins of K. Rool, also by Phil Moraine. You got another 2 episodes of this. But the issue is that when the TARDIS lands centuries earlier on K. Rool, we don't actually reckon or contend with any of the loose ends from The Remains of K. Rool. It ends up kind of charting its own path, where the Doctor, Leela and K9, I'll just say the Doctor, Leela and K9 are kind of gets along for the ride at this point. The Doctor never really has to reckon with or contend with what actually happened to the people of K. Rool in terms of their apocalypse, in terms of their actual dynamics with each other as a society. Instead, they just throw in some completely unrelated bad guys, some more antagonists for the Ruins of K. Rool, and it just becomes a bloody Monster of the Week story. So the TARDIS is incapacitated in K. Rool's past, and the Doctor, Leela and K9, they get separated again, what a shock. And the Doctor stumbles across the final stages of what will be the time travel technology, where the Rems, the refugees, will fling themselves into the future to save themselves from the apocalypse. But joining the cast this go around, we've got Devish Maldra, who is this stereotypical evil capitalist businessman played by Delroy Atkinson, and you've got his assistant, Saffa Tool, played by Zora Bishop.
I'm the Doctor, delighted. And, this looks all reassuringly familiar. The time drill looks complete.
What do you know of the drill?
Well, I know you've used it recently. I can smell the Sigma burn, but something else too. A whiff of Artron energy, no? Oh, and more than that, there's something here that should not be here.
There is. You. How did you get into the base? Who are you?
I said, didn't I? I'm the Doctor. I'm delighted. I mean, I've some companions dawdling somewhere, lackadaisical idlers.
And what are you? Pink? Soft.
Oh, yes. No scares, I'm afraid. We had that complaint last time.
Did you come through the passage?
Goodness me, no. Are you in charge here?
Me? No. Nim Karl is the chief scientist.
Ah, Nim, of course. I should really have thought.
You've gone pale. Well, paler.
It happens when I encounter ghosts.
Ghosts?
But what happens is that Safa gets possessed by this entity that was living in the time vortex, I think. And it's like, oh, okay, this has nothing to do with the actual apocalypse that is currently happening outside of these caves right now, and was the focal point of the story, The Remains of K. Ruler. So we're just in a completely different narrative now, which means that the idea of the refugees, the idea of the apocalypse, the idea of this brokered peace between the Doctor trying to sort things out between the Rems and the Ops, it never really amounts to anything because we have another subplot to deal with. Like I said, Phil Mulryne has got a lot of great ideas, I don't know why he put them all in this story. I think Delroy Atkinson has a great voice for the role. I think he's really good as the stereotypically evil, bad businessman. And I will say he gets a really great couple of scenes with K9, where he essentially tries to get K9 to abandon the Doctor and completely fries K9's logic circuits. I thought that was a really great interaction. I think the character work is pretty strong across these two stories for the most part. When Leela gets separated from the rest of the group, she stumbles across somebody who will be one of the Rems who goes forward into the future. His name is Kujad and he's played by Aaron Neal. But while Leela and Kujad get a strong introduction together where they're basically physically competing with each other and Leela tries to overpower him, you know, Leela, warrior of the Sever-Team, you know, all that great stuff we love about the character, that stuff's really good. But then as soon as that scene's done, like, Leela and Kujad get basically nothing to do for the rest of the story. And it's like, why are you even here? Oh, you're here because Leela had to get separated from the rest of the group and she had to do something for 2 episodes. But yeah, I don't know, I appreciate what this 2-parter or 4-parter, I appreciate what it's going for. I just think it has too many ideas incorporated in it. It just means that we get a bunch of half measures and a lot of contrivances end up happening which keep on separating the group. And it's like, well, this is the first time in years we've had the 4th Doctor, Leela and K9. Like, why do you keep separating them? Doctor Who meets the Descent? Great, make that a 4-parter. Doctor Who has to broker a peace between time refugees? Great, make that the 4-parter. There's some entity in the time vortex that hijacks the body of a evil capitalist's assistant? Great. I don't think you'll get 4 parts out of that, but you'll get a good 2. Leela teaming up with a society in the apocalypse and their massive moving village, kind of like Mortal Engines. Great, make that a 4-parter. Having all of that here, though, something's got to give, and what gives is the substance. There's just not a lot here, unfortunately, and I'm glad that I'm recording this review after listening to this box set just a day or 2 ago, because any longer I probably would have forgotten the majority of this story, which is a big shame because it takes up 2/3 of this box set. But that final third is Cry of the Banshee by Tim Foley. The Doctor is summoned to Earth to Geneva by the Brigadier because a World Peace Conference has been interrupted by a sudden and unexplained death. The Irish delegate has apparently just died of fright and witnesses thought that it could be a banshee. The Doctor traces the source of the attack and finds that it comes from a space station orbiting Jupiter in the 30th century. So the Doctor essentially tricks the Brigadier into the TARDIS because the Brigadier hates travelling across time and space, tricks him into the TARDIS, takes them all to Jupiter to investigate just what happened here. On the spaceship, they find a derelict environment. It's like a boggy marsh inside of it. You've got adjudicators who are essentially futuristic space police. They are there as well to investigate some anomalies happening in the space station. You've got Marla, played by Reiki Iola, and Garth, played by Rhys Pantry. And these shadowy, ominous, wraith-like banshees haunting the space station. K9 can't detect them with his sensors, but everyone else can certainly see them and feel their presence.
Doctor, what is a banshee?
A banshee? K9?
Banshee, a creature from Irish mythology, a wailing spirit said to be an omen of death.
Yes, the fact it was the Irish ambassador hasn't escaped me.
Perhaps something followed her here.
This building has the highest security in the world. The ambassador couldn't be followed without us knowing about it. The secretary was a gibbering wreck when he described it. Said the thing drifted straight through the wall. That's the kind of thing we're up against.
This room, I believe.
Yes, this is the place, Doctor. How on earth did you know?
No, Brigadier, not on Earth. K9, could you perform a Cronin scan?
Affirmative, Master.
Would you like to interview the secretary? He's still in the infirmary.
Not now. Understand? I'm smelling the air.
Very well. Suit yourself. So, you're the latest one.
The latest one?
His assistant. You and the dog.
Yes. Tell me about this peace conference.
So the main appeal of this story is of course having John Culshaw brilliantly reprise the role of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart after the late Nicholas Courtney, and he's interacting with the Fourth Doctor in audio and also meeting Leela and K9 for the first time. And those initial introductions in Geneva, those are brilliant. How the Brigadier just has no idea how to accept K9. It's like, oh, of course this Doctor has a robot dog. Why am I surprised? And the Doctor, interestingly, refers to the Brigadier and Leela as his two best friends, and this sort of prompts a slightly competitive rivalry between the two. And the Brigadier's frustration when he's taken to Jupiter, that was funny. That was really entertaining, and I really enjoyed those beats in the first part of the story. But then, midway through part 1 of Cry of the Banshee, when they're in this space station orbiting Jupiter in the 30th century, they split up. So it's the Doctor and K9, they're going to investigate the space station with the adjudicators, and Leela and the Brigadier have to remain on the ship. Now you get some strong interactions between the Brigadier and Leela, where they have to get along with each other, and in the end they have to literally steady the ship that is their friendship. You know, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards, but it kind of feels as a listener that this story just threw up its hands in the air and was like, I don't want to write the Brigadier and K9 or the Brigadier and the Fourth Doctor. Let's just split them up. And I don't get it. Why are you throwing the towel that early? What the Banshees are, though, I thought that was pretty interesting. And the actual reveal of why the Irish delegate was killed 1,000 years ago across the solar system, I really liked that revelation. I thought that it bordered on the existential, like really cosmic time travel horror stuff. I thought that was great. And while I won't give it away, the revelation kind of causes the Brigadier to question everything that he does at UNIT and his militaristic approach. And he gets a wonderful parting scene with the Fourth Doctor where they talk about what they do and why they do it. I thought it was a really wonderful character beat. John Leeson clearly has a lot of fun when K9 gets possessed by the voices of the Banshee, but you get the sense that Tim Foley is really struggling with the restraints of the two-part format. There's literally a scene transition when the Doctor's like, okay, let's figure out what's going to happen with these Banshee. And then everybody gets onto the ship and is like, oh, it was brilliant what you did there with the Banshee. You were so inspiring. You had a brilliant speech. You did all of this great stuff. And it's like, oh, couldn't we have heard that? I feel like we've missed an entire act of the story. But I did really like the cliffhanger between the two episodes of Cry of the Banshee. And I will also say, I forgot to mention this earlier, The Remains of K. Ruler, the cliffhanger between parts 1 and 2, that was also really strong. Like a two-pronged approach to the cliffhanger. That was really great. But I think the best part of this story was the initial meeting of the Fourth Doctor, K9, Brigadier and Leela, and then the stuff with Leela and the Brigadier later on. But I kind of felt like we should have got more of that. Maybe you could have had a full-blown story of the Brigadier and Leela trapped in an environment and they have to compete with their philosophies or find a way to complement and work with each other, as opposed to it being relegated to a subplot amongst other subplots over the course of this story. But I don't want to go too hard on that element because the next Fourth Doctor box set will see another Fourth Doctor, Leela, K9 and Brigadier story in the box set The Last Queen of the Nile. That story is written by Jonathan Morris and also features The Silence, so lots to look forward to there, but I kind of feel like you only get one chance at a first meeting, a first impression between these characters, and I feel like they could have done more with it. So The Ruins of K. Ruler overall, I don't feel like it was wasted time, but they just wasn't really a lot to it, unfortunately. I do think it was a step up from the Hellwood Inheritance, but compared to other middle chapters for the Fourth Doctor seasons recently, like compare it to Series 13's Metamorphosis, or Series 12's Angels and Demons, or Series 11's The Nine, like these are really great, strong box sets, and it kind of feels like The Ruins of K. Ruler, it just feels like there just wasn't really much here. Conceptually interesting stories with smatterings of great character work, but I feel like the actual main A-plots that were moving the narrative forward, I kind of felt like they were really lacking, and quite insubstantial when all is said and done. But it is still great to hear Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor, Louise Jameson as Leela, John Leeson as well as K9. You know, that I love that dynamic. I love the robot dog, okay? I'm only human. But now I'm really hoping that part 3, The Last Queen of the Nile, which comes out in September, I'm really hoping that kind of hits it out of the park now, because you need a big win now for this series. Otherwise, this series might just be comprised of lost potential. But anyway, that's my review of The Ruins of K'Rula from the Fourth Doctor Adventures. What did you folks think about it? Let me know in the comment section below. Once again, I apologise for the hotel setup, but please bear with me. Hit the like button on this video, it really helps me out. Also subscribe if you haven't already for more Big Finish reviews. And folks, I'll see you all next time.